Hey, good morning, everyone. Thomas Montgomery here. It's a beautiful Monday morning. Today is January 27th, 2025. We get together with our distribution partners most weekday mornings at 8 o'clock Central to talk about strategies, tips, techniques, share success stories, and support each of you. Today, we're going to go through one of our success stories. Over the past few weeks, we've highlighted a few of our different resellers and how different their approaches are to going out to the marketplace. We went through the NIR model, NIR meaning NIR, he's one of our top producers. We've gone through the Earnest model. Today, we're going to go through the Audrey model. Audrey's model is much different than probably everyone else's, but it's probably more lucrative. So I'm not saying that you should duplicate and do what Audrey does, but I think it is important for you to understand her approach. It's legal, it's ethical, it's effective, and she makes a ton of money putting in very little time. So we're going to go through that and help you understand her approach. But again, she's in the same seat you are, so she's not something different. She's a reseller. She's helping small businesses have fundable businesses to be able to qualify for large amounts of funding. She's focused on improving financial literacy and access to capital. So she's in the same role that you are, but her approach is most likely very different. So we're going to go through the Audrey model. We're answering your questions. And then guess what? We want to go implement. We want to go apply what we've learned. So Audrey's model is different than yours and probably more lucrative. We have hundreds of resellers, and many of you are doing really well. You've got Michael. Well, we got several Michaels. You got Michael, Jermaine, Greg. Many of you are averaging one or more shelf corp sold per day. And that's great. That's kind of what it was designed to do, one a day, so you get the consistent revenue stream. But some of you are much less than that. So again, the lower your production, maybe the more open you should be to what others who are successfully doing something different. So let's go through the Audrey model. First of all, I'm going to shock you a little bit. She takes a contrarian approach. Audrey does not sell shelf corps. I think some of you have a bit of a pressured, nervous, anxious approach. I've got to go find someone to sell a shelf corp to. Her approach is 180 degrees different than that. I'll explain. So, first of all, she sets the tone. If you look at her email, she has a professional looking email. And in the subject line, it says grant coordinator. So she's setting the tone from her first interaction. She's helping people get into a grant. Now, I'll defend it and describe it and make sure that we all feel like it's ethical and accurate. But she's not a sales professional. She is a grant coordinator. Are any of you currently leading with the marketplace that you're offering a grant? Go ahead and type yes or no if you wouldn't mind into the Q&A, because maybe some of you are using something similar to Audrey's model and I'm just not aware of it, but I don't think so. So again, she doesn't sell shelf corps. Now, is she selling shelf corps? Yes, but her approach to the market is not to sell it. Her job title is grant coordinator. And Audrey doesn't want to work all the time. She figures if she wants to work all the time, she might as well go get a job. So she follows the premise of a 4-hour work week. There's a book about this. If you've not read it, I strongly encourage you to read it. It's from an author named Tim Ferriss, and the name of the book is 4-Hour Work Week. Now, it doesn't apply directly to our business, but it's some great information, and it's the Audrey model. Audrey doesn't want to work 8 or 10 hours a day every day. She figures she might as well get a job if that's the case. So her plan is to work about 4 hours a week, about an hour a day, and she usually likes to take 3-day weekends. So you can see Audrey's much different than most of us. She's not out leading with, hey, I want to sell you a shelf corp. She's going to the marketplace as a grant coordinator, and she works a very part-time basis, about 4 hours a week. Furthermore, she only wants one new client per week. She doesn't want to be inundated with just constant communication because she only wants to work 4 hours a week. So Audrey tells every one of her prospects, and we'll get more into prospecting in a minute. She tells every one of her prospects, hey, I only have one shelf corp available. If you're interested, and then she tells them what to do. And I'll tell you what her process is. But she's creating that sense of exclusivity, that sense of urgency. So that helps her a lot be able to maintain a very reasonable schedule. So what she's doing is not asking them to buy a shelf corp. She's offering them to apply for a grant to get 1 million or more dollars. So she's using the same the same shelf corp agreement that all of you have. So when you signed up to be a reseller, no contract, no fee, no commitments, we sent you each a shelf corp reseller packet. One of the attachments was an editable Word document. That is what you would edit with your information, take ours off, put yours on, change the pricing the way you want, and then you get it into e-signature format. If you're using our reseller marketing package, we take care of all that for you, by the way. But the bottom line is her pitch is, hey, if you're interested in getting a grant that will get you at least $1 million to start or grow a business, let her know. And so she has essentially people lined up coming to her wanting this versus some of you that seem to have to work very hard to go find prospects. Now, you might ask, well, what's this grant all about? Well, it's true. And we talk about this, but people get confused. So then I become hesitant to talk about it because it kind of wears me out. But we're going to go back and cover it. Is there a grant? Is that real? Yes, there is. Does the grant give away money to people? Not exactly. It reimburses them for the cost of the shelf corp. So the grant reimburses clients that buy a shelf corp. So let's talk about her pitch. So she invites people to apply for a grant. She's focused on clients that want 1 million or more. She calls them puppies and big dogs. She doesn't want to worry, she doesn't want to deal with a bunch of puppies, a bunch of little entrepreneurs all spazzy, jumping around. She wants entrepreneurs, and they can be early stage or inexperienced. It's not about that. But if they're not looking for 1 million or more, she'll pass them on. She only wants to work with one big dog per week so she can maintain her work-life balance. So then she's got to describe, well, what does the grant provide, right? Because we don't want to mislead people. We don't want them to be confused. We want them to know, what do they get from the grant? Well, they're going to get the following. And this is essentially a listing of everything that comes with the Shelf Corp. So you don't have to memorize this. If you go look at your Shelf Corp agreement that we sent you in the email for the reseller implementation packet, these are the deliverables. So she lets them know, hey, we're going to provide you a free business entity, because if you want business funding, you have to have a business entity like a LLC, C Corp, S Corp, so forth. Also, we provide for free through the grant a free business plan. That's important as well, because we need to be able to describe to the finance source of funds what it is that you want the money for. We also provide free financial projections. We're going to take that out 36 months because that's what's needed, month by month. How much money is going to come in each month to your business? What are the expected expenses? Can we afford the $1 million or more that we're pursuing? Also, the grant provides for free $100,000 in collateral, and that's a big deal. A lot of small business owners don't have collateral, so that's a barrier for them. We realize that, so we literally build that in. They're getting the $100,000 within 24 hours. If they have credit imperfections, then that's assisted as well. Why? Because we know that those are barriers. So if you go back and look at the Shelf Corp proposition, that's essentially what she's summarizing. So that's what they're getting for free through the grant. Now we're going to explain the process so we're transparent. Everyone with me so far? So she requires prospects to apply for the grant. So she's using our reseller marketing package just like this. So she's driving people to her landing page. People come into the landing page, they fill out this information, they check the box, they click the blue bar, they get a text. Within seconds later, they get a prompting. Do you want to receive communication about the free shelf corpse? They type yes, yes, and then they get the drip campaign, which includes a link to her agreement. So she doesn't have to go chase them down. And again, she's creating that sense of exclusivity. Hey, I'm only working with one client a week. So if you're serious about this, if you want $1 million or more through a shelf corp that's provided to you for free through a grant, go ahead and come to mine, meaning her landing page. So she's not out begging people to enroll. She's in control of the conversation. Just imagine that for a minute. If the world knew that you had access to a grant that could provide any entrepreneur a fundable business to get at least $1 million, it provides those resources that are needed to have a fundable business, and they can get that shelf corp for free because of a grant. Don't you think you'd have a lot of people coming to you? I know we have people come to us all the time looking for free, free, free. Well, that's her approach. That's her pitch. You can get all that for free. Now, there's a process I'm going to describe. We're not going to mislead anyone, but that's an incredible value proposition. So she explains that the clients have zero out of pocket, and that's a big deal. Some of you have had trouble assimilating that. So does zero out of pocket mean that they're not going to pay for a shelf corp? No, they are going to pay for the shelf corp. That's what we're explaining right here. So they'll have zero out of pocket. They'll sign up to purchase a shelf corp from her or from you if you're using the reseller marketing package that's built in. We're going to facilitate financing to pay for the shelf corp, and then that price is then reimbursed up to $15,000 through the grant after the client has gone through funding. So there's 3 steps. If you capture all 3 of those, then you're telling the client the truth. You're being transparent. Is there any upfront cost? No. Do I have to pay for the shelf? Yes, but we're going to get you financing for it. And then best of all, we have a grant that's going to reimburse you after you've completed the funding process. So some people want to skip this step here and know it doesn't work. The grant reimburses the client up to $15,000 for the purchase of the shelf corp. So zero out of pocket. They sign the agreement with you. We send them the finance app. They complete the finance app. They get the financing. They do pay for the shelf corp, and then it's reimbursed to them after they complete the funding process. Does everybody understand this bullet? Because if you misrepresent this, you're going to either be confused yourself or confuse other people. So they are paying for it, but it's reimbursed up to $15,000 by the grant. Okay, good. I think we're all on the same page, which is excellent. All right, and I mentioned she uses the tools. Now you can do it however you want. We've got about half of you that are using the reseller marketing package where we provide you the landing page, the drip marketing, the e-contract. It makes it rather passive. And about half of you said, no, you're going to do it your way. I don't care. You can do it however you want. But she only wants to work a little bit. And so by using the reseller marketing package, it automates it. It doesn't make it quite passive. She has to generate the conversation to drive the person to her landing page, but typically then she doesn't have to do anything else. So let me know if you have any questions about the reseller marketing program. That's not our message today, but it's relevant to her approach. All right, and I mentioned this a moment ago. She only wants to work with clients that want at least $100,000. I'm sorry, at least $1 million capital raise. She does not want to work with anyone that's looking for a small amount. It's not worth her time. So she'll ask them, how much funding are you looking for? And if they say less than 1 million, she'll say, well, look, I apologize. I only work, meaning she, I only work with clients that want at least $1 million. If you're flexible to accept 1 million or more, great, I can help you. If not, I'll refer you to someone else. Because it's the same amount of work. It's like if you were a realtor, would you want to go out and sell $50,000 houses, or would you rather sell $5 million houses? Well, you make more off the bigger deal, and it's really the same paperwork. So now they may have initially thought, no, I don't really want that much, but after they hear her, they're like, okay, great, I'll do 1 million. So she makes 10,000 up front. That works well for her. Now again, each of you who are resellers, you determine how much you want to charge up front. She charges 10,000 or 20,000 up front, so she's making 10,000, and then she's making 10,000 profit on the front end. Now, her real money, just like for all of you, is on the back end. So all of you make 5%. If you're using the reseller marketing program, I should add, then you make 5% of the client's capital raise. Well, it's really good when you think about 5% of $1 million, that's 50,000. So you control how much you want to make on the front end. We do a 50-50 split on the back end of the 10 points. So you're getting 5 points. So she's there making 50 to 60,000 per deal. Her goal is just one a week. She doesn't want to work herself to death. But think about that. I mean, if you could make 50,000 a week, you working around a 4-hour work week, is that adequate for you, or is that not enough? Because you could work more, right? So you could not say I only have one. You could say, oh, no, I have 2 shelf corps, and you could double that. But she just wants to keep it simple. She wants simple, but lucrative. Now, we've talked about before, we want to remind you, you do not need to be a salesperson to be economically successful in our program, correct? So we launched last week our override system. We're not network marketing, we're not MLM, but we implemented an override system, which I think will be really generous for you. So it allows you to be the CEO of your business, and essentially you can go build a team of Audreys. You don't need to be Audrey. You could have a team of people that are Audreys. They get paid and you get paid the overrides. So what would happen is if you want to build a sales organization, each member of your team would participate in the RMP, the reseller marketing program, as we talked about. That's going to provide them a landing page like this that's linked to them. It's going to provide them the e-signature contract that's embedded in. They get access to the leads. And then the comp model is great, right? If you understand the comp model, it's crazy good. Because with the comp model, your sales rep's going to make the money up front plus 5 points. And guess what? You make the same. You make 5,000 up front plus 5 points. So with that being said, at the bottom of the page, we have the different resources. If you need QuickCash, 10,000 in 24 hours, go to 509pacific.org. That's our 501c3 website. If you're not a reseller, but you want to become one, just email us. There's no contract to sign. There's no production requirements. There's no cost. Just email us and we'll send you the reseller packet. If you need to talk to someone, give Madison a call. If you've missed any of the past trainings, so you want to understand more or just see what we've talked about in the past, it's on YouTube. All right, so let's get into your questions, comments, concerns. All right, Samuel had the first question a few minutes ago about media. Okay, great. So let's go down here. So when a client buys from you a shelf corp, they are getting a number of free deliverables, and one of the things that they get is 100,000 in collateral. That comes in the form of accounts receivables. And Samuel, media is a term in your and my industry that refers to the underlying contract that substantiates that debt. So it's the underlying contract or contracts. Thank you, Samuel. Michael's asking about the grant. Yeah, so the grant, so let's add that. I don't want any of you hung up on that. So we have a 501c3 nonprofit called 509 Pacific. And so 509 Pacific facilitates the grant. Shouldn't be a secret about that. Sorry, Michael, if you didn't know that. So the grant comes from 509 Pacific, and we drive people to 509 Pacific on every one of our Zooms. So you can go see our website. So 509 Pacific is a 501c3 nonprofit. It's the administrator of the grant. It's where the grant comes from. And you can always go visit the website. Yeah, sorry, Michael, if you didn't know that. That wasn't meant to be a secret. Oh, Samuel was asking the same question. Todd's asking about the max amount. Yeah, so the max that the grant will reimburse, and it's important to get the verb right. So is the grant paying upfront for the Shelf Corp? No, it's reimbursing. When does it reimburse? After the client has gone through the funding, and the max is $15,000. All right. Yeah, and Jessica's a new reseller, and you're in the right place. That's why you come to the morning Zooms to be around others like Elaine and Anthony and Belzonia, all these bright, motivated resellers. And this is where we share ideas and learn success stories. And so I'm hoping some of you will also give us permission to tell the world how you're generating your 100,000 plus per month as a reseller. If you give us permission, then we can highlight you in a future session. Thank you, Jessica, but you're in the right spot. Michael's right. So again, the maximum, we'll go ahead and put that on there because we don't want confusion. The max reimbursement from the grant is 15,000. Now, let's say that you want to do a grant match. You could, because again, I know you're not in it for the money. You're here to help people. But if you're making, let's go back down here. So we didn't add those together. So total comp projected, and this is based upon how much you want to charge front and back, but let's call it 60,000 per client. So if you wanted to also contribute towards the reimbursement, you could, because you're looking at 60,000. It's okay to give back a little bit, right? Some of you are faith-based individuals, and so tithing, giving 10% is common. So what if you were to tithe 10% of that? That'd be 6,000. 6,000 going back to the client in addition to our 15,000. Now that gets them a reimbursement of 21,000. So you're in control of the money, Michael. But the grant does have a max of 15,000. All right. Elaine says cost involved with the 3 million in funding with our corps. Okay. Well, we just had a training Friday, and Elaine, you may want to go back and view that. So what we said is the Shelf Corp by default is set up, and it says it in the agreement, it says it here. The Shelf Corp comes ready to go to funding for $100,000. That's what it's built for. That's what the business plan states. That's what the financial projections support, but it's very common for clients to want more, like Audrey's clients. So what we do first, Elaine, is we deliver the shelf as it is, and then we work with the clients to make the edits as needed for the larger capital raise. But we'll have to work client by client to figure out what they need. So again, shelf is set up to go right to funding for 100,000. If they want more, which most clients do, now we're going to have to work with the client to make those tweaks. So it's like if you want to make chocolate chip cookies and you're following the ingredients, you just follow the ingredients, you put it in the oven, you have chocolate chip cookies. If you want to get fancy and put frosting or sprinkles or do other things, that's okay. That can be fun, can be tasty, but now that's an individualistic approach. We'll have to work with each client to see what it's going to take to get to that larger amount. There's not just a set answer. And I know that can be frustrating to some of you, but it's true. Like, think about, you call the doctor. You all know I have stage 4 cancer, right? So the first time that I started having those symptoms and problems, could I just call the doctor and say, how much longer do I have to live, or what's my medical cost going to be? No, there has to be the diagnostics, there has to be data gathered, there has to be a consultation. So I know everyone wants simple. The 100,000 is designed to be very simple, but when we go above that, we're going to have to interface with the client to figure out what we need to do to get them from where they're at to the end goal. So I'm sorry, but not everything's going to be simple, yes or no, black or white. Sometimes we'll have to work with the client. It's simple to get 100,000, but when we go for 100,000 higher, we're going to have to work with them to see what path we need. Yeah, Claude's got a great point. So we have two different types of distribution partners. We have resellers and we have shelf corp stores. We're opening stores across the country. They have a different training, so we don't talk about them as much because they're in a different Zoom, different time of the day. But with that, yes, what we're talking about here can certainly be done by the shelf corp store owners as well. Because in both cases, you're controlling the client pricing and the pitch because you're interfacing with the client. All right, Elaine's asked about the timeline, and that's a good question. So first, we have to understand what's the trigger for the grant. If we don't understand this, then I failed you. So if you're going to lead with the pitch for the grant, we understand the process. It's right here. Client's going to have zero out of pocket. Yay, everyone loves that. Client is going to need to pay for the shelf corp. Boo, no one wants to pay for things. They want someone else to pay for it. Well, that'll happen in the end, but they're going to need to apply for financing. We'll get them financing. They'll pay you, so you're getting that upfront money. Bam. We work with the client, raise the capital, and then they get reimbursed for the grant. Think about, I don't know, a deposit on an apartment, right? So there's lots of aspects in the business world where people have to put something down and then you get it back after you do what you said you would do. A lot of nice restaurants, you can't just call and make reservations. One of my favorite restaurants is in Hot Springs, Arkansas. You can't just call and make a reservation. You have to pay them to make a reservation. And if you don't show up, you lose the deposit. So it's okay. They're going to have some skin in the game, but they actually get it back. They get it free as long as they complete the process. All right, so hopefully that answered the question. And let's see. Yeah, and again, I know some of you just want simple. So if you want the simplest, just keep it at 100,000, because when we go above 100,000, there's going to need to be tweaks made, and hopefully you can assimilate that. But if that's just too much for you to understand, then don't go out with the million offering that Audrey does. Just keep it at 100,000, and that'll take some confusion maybe away from those of you that have trouble understanding what needs to happen to go from 100,000 to a larger capital raise. I want you to be successful. So if you need to take the Audrey model and make it a light version and just go out and look for people just looking for 100,000 and just simplify it, that's fine. She just doesn't want to mess with puppies. I don't know if you've ever seen it, but we have a lot of clients, and if you just got to decide how do you want to run your sales organization. We've already said you don't need to be the salesperson. You can be the CEO. You can have people out, but you have to provide the guidance, the leadership. All right, so I think the last question, Michael. Okay, so QuickCash, he's kind of asking how it builds in. So QuickCash is different than the Shelf Corp. QuickCash is just getting them the money, where the Shelf Corp includes the scope of services to qualify for business funding. Technically, and I know I'll confuse some, but technically we're providing 10 QuickCash included for free, because QuickCash is 10,000 down here. We're actually building 10 of those in for free into the Shelf Core. And so you could certainly leverage that in your pitch if you wanted. But yes, if you have clients that went zero out of pocket, they apply for financing. If for some reason they don't want to use financing to pay for their Shelf Corp, then you're right, Michael, then they could use QuickCash instead. All right, well, I know we went a little deeper, and I wrestle with how to keep things simple and then how to have deep conversations. But if you have any questions, give Madison a call. She's our in-house pro that she can answer your questions or find you the answer. If you're not a reseller, I encourage you to be one. If you need some quick cash, of course, that's there. Past trainings are on Zoom. But I'd love to see you for the month of February. I know it's not February yet, but it's almost February. Why don't you do the Audrey model for just the month of February? Stop selling Shelf Corps, become a grant coordinator, commit to just working an hour a day, focus on just getting one new client a week, not even one a day, just one a week. Tell those clients, hey, I'm looking for participants that want at least $1 million, so it's worth your while, worth our while. Explain it honestly and accurately. No out of pocket. Have them sign your contract. Ideally, get in the reseller marketing program so we can automate it for you. But regardless, they need to sign the contract. Then we'll get them financing. We'll get them $100,000 in 24 hours in almost all cases. We need about 7 days to fulfill all of this. And then, I mean, theoretically, we could go to funding for that $1 million on the 8th day. All right. Thanks, everyone. Let us know if you have any questions. We'll see you back tomorrow morning. Bye-bye.